Right now, if you look around your life, you're probably within reach of something that was once wild. Maybe it's the food in your fridge, the wool in your sweater, maybe it's a dog asleep on your couch. But here's the strange part. None of those things existed in their current form until people, just like you, decided to try something that had never been done. They tried to turn wild animals into partners. And they didn't just do it once. They did it over and over, with wolves, cows, horses, chickens, and more. But here's the real question. Why did they choose the animals they did? How did they even pull it off? And what does it say about the way you live now? The first animals ancient humans tamed didn't just change history. They changed what it means to be human. Let's find out how. The first animal ever tamed was not what most people guess. It wasn't the cow. It wasn't the horse. It was the wolf. Or, more exactly, the ancestor of every dog alive today. The evidence sits in a jawbone found in a cave in Belgium, dated to 31,000 years ago. That's 10,000 years before anyone ever planted a seed. In 2010, a team led by Mieke Germainpera at the Royal Belgian Institute of Natural Sciences analyzed the jaw and teeth and found something off. The teeth were broader, and the snout was shorter than any wild wolf. This was not a typical predator. This was the earliest known dog, and it lived alongside people who still hunted mammoths. But why would anyone want a wolf near their camp? Here's the thing. Early humans and early wolves hunted the same prey. Both went after big, dangerous animals that could kill you if you slipped up. Scientists like Pat Shipman at Penn State have argued that there was a kind of alliance. Young wolves that were less aggressive might have hung around the edges of human camps, picking over bones, learning not to bite the hand that throws the scrap. Humans, in turn, got an early warning system for approaching danger, and maybe even help on the hunt. Over generations, the friendliest wolves got closer, and the most trusting humans let them in. The result was something new, a partnership between two predators, each making the other stronger. But not every animal could be tamed, and not every animal that humans tried to tame actually stayed tamed. Here's where we hit the next big milestone, the goat. Goats were first domesticated about 11,000 years ago in the Zagros Mountains of western Iran. In 2001, Melinda Zederer and Brian Hesse published a study in the journal Science, analyzing ancient goat bones from Ganj Dare, a site in the mountains. They noticed a pattern. There were far more bones from young males than from females. That meant people were keeping herds, culling the males for meat, and letting the females live to provide milk and more kids. This is not hunting. This is the birth of animal farming. The same thing happened with sheep, just a few hundred years later, in the same region. And here's a detail that matters. Goats and sheep are both herd animals. They follow a leader. They're not too picky about food. They breed easily in captivity. And, crucially, they don't panic and scatter when you try to contain them. Jared Diamond, in his 1997 book Guns, Germs, and Steel, spelled out the criteria. To be tamed, an animal has to be able to breed in captivity, grow fast, eat what you can provide, and tolerate humans without going berserk. That's why you're not milking zebras or hitching up a team of antelope. They just don't fit the job description. After goats and sheep, the next animals to fall were the cow and the pig. Cows were tamed about 10,000 years ago in the Middle East from a wild ancestor called the aurochs. The last wild aurochs died in Poland in 1627, but you can still see its descendants in every steak, every glass of milk. Pigs were tamed in Turkey and China around the same time, from wild boar. And here's something wild. Ancient pigs and wild boar can still interbreed, even today. The line between wild and tame isn't always as sharp as you think. But here's a twist. The chicken, which now outnumbers every other bird on the planet, took a different path. Chickens were first domesticated not for food, but for fighting. In 2014, Gregor Larson at the University of Oxford traced chicken DNA back to the red jungle fowl of Southeast Asia, about 8,000 years ago. In places like northern China and Thailand, people bred them for cockfighting long before anyone thought to eat their eggs. Only later did chickens become the breakfast staple you know. And then, much later, came the horse. For a long time, scholars thought horses were first tamed on the Eurasian steppe around 6,000 years ago. But in 2009, Alan Outram and colleagues at the University of Exeter found evidence at a site called Butai in Kazakhstan. They uncovered horse bones with marks from harnesses and fat residues in pottery, showing people were milking horses and riding them by 3500 BC. The horse, maybe more than any other animal, changed everything. Horses let humans travel and trade over huge distances, fight wars, carry messages, and build empires. They even changed the way people thought about time and space. So that's the line most people remember. Wolf to goat, to sheep, to cow, to pig, to chicken, to horse. But here's where the story flips. The real surprise isn't which animals we tamed. It's which ones we couldn't. For all of history, humans have tried to domesticate everything from zebras to elephants to cheetahs to moose. And almost every time, it failed. In 1951, the Soviet Union ran a famous experiment at the Novosibirsk Institute in Siberia, trying to tame foxes. The geneticist Dmitry Belyaev and his team bred only the calmest, friendliest foxes in each generation. In just 50 years, the foxes changed. Their ears drooped, their tails curled, their coats changed color, and they wagged their tails like dogs. But here's the kicker. Even after decades, the tamed foxes were still nervous, still prone to bite, still not truly domesticated. They looked the part, but they weren't dogs. The line between wild and tame is a tightrope, and only a handful of animals have ever crossed it. So why is that? The answer comes down to biology and behavior. Only a few animals are wired in a way that lets them live in close quarters, breed in captivity, and accept humans as part of the group. If an animal is too aggressive, too nervous, or needs too much space, the project fails. That's why, after all the thousands of species humans have tried to tame, only about 15 large mammals ever made the cut. And of those, just 5, sheep, goat, cow, pig, and horse, became the backbone of almost every major civilization. The rest stayed wild, sometimes right on our doorstep. But there's a deeper pivot here. Taming animals didn't just give humans new tools. It changed the human mind. When people started living with animals, they stopped being wanderers and started building homes. They began to measure time in births and calvings, not just in seasons. They invented new words, new gods, new stories. In the bones of the earliest dogs, researchers like Angela Perry at Durham University have found signs of care, healed fractures, old age, even signs of arthritis. These were animals that lived and died with humans, not just beside them. The act of taming changed both sides. Dogs became more social, cows became calmer, humans learned to plan, to wait, to trust. And here's the final twist. Every major leap in civilization, the birth of cities, the rise of writing, the spread of technology, rides on the back of those first tamed animals. Wheat and barley fed the farmers, but sheep, goats, cattle, and pigs made the farms possible at all. Without them, there is no city, no empire, no you sitting here watching this. So let's run it back. 31,000 years ago, a wolf sat by a campfire and changed the future. 11,000 years ago, a herder in Iran learned to keep goats in a pen. 10,000 years ago, wild aurochs became cattle, wild boar became pigs. 8,000 years ago, chickens fought for sport before they fed the world. 6,000 years ago, a horse took a rider farther than anyone had traveled before. And all along, people tried and failed to tame animals that just wouldn't bend. The few that did, remade the world. So next time you see a dog, or eat an egg, or pour milk in your coffee, remember, you're living inside the solution to a problem your ancestors solved with patience, risk, and luck. The animals they tamed did not just feed you. They built your cities, filled your myths, shaped your language, and made you who you are. The real story of civilization isn't just what humans did to animals. It's what animals did to humans. If you want to go deeper into any of this, the sources are all linked in the description.